I just got back from a paleo trip, a type of trip where I drive around and look at prehistoric things, and love every minute of it. Last year we did one that was localized to Colorado and Utah. While I managed to visit a lot of amazing museums, I wanted to go bigger this time around, with not one, not two, not even three, but 6 states. Those being Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Nevada, we only drove through Nevada, nothing paleo happened there, and Utah. We made stops at a lot of places that I'm very excited to share with you. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Our journey begins in Trinidad, Colorado, near Trinidad Lake State Park. Here you will find this. Isn't it magnificent? What you are looking at here is the KPG boundary, the line that separates the end of the Cretaceous and the beginning of the Paleogene. In other words, this is the layer where the non-bird dinosaurs went extinct. That can be seen in the thin, light line. That line is absolutely full of iridium, which is something that is rare on Earth, but very common in asteroids. This iridium layer can be found at numerous sites around the globe, and it's one of the biggest pieces of evidence that helps support the asteroid hypothesis. It was both amazing and extremely sad to see this in person. I was very happy to get the opportunity. Our next stop lies in New Mexico, Albuquerque, to be more specific, at the New Mexico Museum of Natural History and Science. Despite having family who live in Albuquerque, this is my first time visiting here, at least per my memory, and I have one major thing to say about this place. Why on earth did it take me so long to visit it? Holy cow, this museum is incredible. I mean, as you walk in, the first thing you see is an animatronic of a Versur, a sort of lesser-known tyrannosaur that goes on a roaring fit every so often. And directly to the right of that, you can see a gorgeous Sarcosuchus statue. I mean, I was already losing my mind, and I had only scratched the surface. Behind the Sarcosuchus, there was a hall dedicated to the topic that is armor on animals. And these rooms were just chock full of creatures. I mean, is that a Dinosuchus? I had never seen one before. I bet that's the only time that will happen on this trip. You can also find a gorgeous Eurypterid, Scelidosaurus, Scutellosaurus, placoderm fish, Glyptodonts, included with a doedicarous tail, and Scutosaurus, my beloved. Towards the back, there was even a whole room reserved for ankylosaurs, one nodosaurid and one ankylosaurid. I love that they were right next to each other because it was a great way to compare the two types of ankylosaurians, you know, kind of like showcase the differences between them. I give the armor exhibit a 15 out of 10. I'm not rating all of these, I loved the armor exhibit. I thought it was so cool. But wait, there's more. There is a whole sort of travel through time portion at the museum that begins in the Paleozoic. I saw many amazing things here, like some extinct amphibians and Arthropleura with eye stalks. I love that they included that because it seems like it's something that they included after the discovery of 2 juvenile Arthropleura specimens with eye stalks. That's something that I absolutely love because not a lot of museums have been able to do something like that. You know, update their exhibits to make sure they keep up with the current understanding of these animals. There was also some synapsids, of course, like the very iconic Dimetrodon, and one of my new personal favorites, Gordodon, a synapsid with very interesting chompers. I mean, just look at these incisors. That's certainly something that implies that they had a very interesting diet. There's also a case that contains 3 Gorgonopsian skulls, including one of my favorite prehistoric animals ever, Inostransavia. I loved looking at these. It's such a cool display. Then you move into the Mesozoic, starting off with the Triassic period, where you catch a glimpse of some cool creatures like Coelophysis. In fact, there's quite a few Coelophysis here. There's a Placerius skeleton that's being attacked by a Phytosaur, and even a whole display filled with Phytosaur skulls. I even noticed a Mastodonsaurus skull, which is one of the largest amphibians to ever exist. The museum continues into the Jurassic, where you see some classics like Allosaurus and Stegosaurus, even a huge Brachiosaurus limb. These displays were absolutely massive, and they certainly highlighted just how big the Jurassic became towards the end of it. And finally, you encounter the Cretaceous, a room that has a lot of sculptures that are a real sight to see, like this Mosasaur, It looks so cool. This is then capped off with a room that shows you the extinction of the non-bird dinosaurs. And last, but certainly not least, we have the Cenozoic portion. You step into a room with a glorious sight of a Gastornis, and a great view of what Earth was like shortly after the KPG extinction. Beautiful pieces of art cover the walls, and displays housing fossils can be found. Obviously, the exhibit continues until you reach the Pleistocene, i.e. the last ice age, which is highlighted by mammoths, camels, direwolves, and Smilodon, of course. Then you get to wrap everything up with a nice little bow by looking at the fossil lab, and a plethora of fossils on display in that hall. This museum was just amazing. If you're ever in the Albuquerque area, definitely go and check it out. I mean, just look at the statues that are outside. So cool. And yes, I'm aware that they recently underwent renovations. My family did tell me when I went there. Next up, on the very same day, we drove to Petrified Forest National Park, which is located in Arizona. Unfortunately, we arrived kind of late. We spent a lot of time at the New Mexico Museum, so I didn't get to spend as much time as I would prefer, but it was still a real treat to see the park again after over 10 years. It is always wild to look at a desert and see evidence that a forest was once here, obviously all the way back in the Triassic period. At that time, the land was mainly dominated by large Dicynodonts and, of course, Pseudasuchians. Dinosaurs were not nearly as diverse as they would eventually become. By the time we drove through the forest, the museum was in the process of closing, so I don't have any footage of that, but I did find these handsome fellas right outside the exit. Aren't they just beautiful? So then, after driving through Arizona, we finally crossed over into California, and we visited Cabazon Dinosaurs, a very fun side-of-the-road attraction with massive sauropod and T-Rex statues. The sauropod has a gift shop inside with some very cool vintage dinosaur displays. Oh, and this poster. Isn't that amazing? While inside the gift shop, you were able to purchase tickets for a little bit of a dinosaur walk. You know, one of those walks you take with a bunch of dinosaur statues. They have one of those here. So, of course, naturally, we did that, and it was fun. Obviously, if you were coming here for paleo accuracy, you would probably be a little bit disappointed, but there was just a lot of dinosaurs that had a sort of vintage feel to them, which is something that I always love to see. Some sculptures weren't even too far off from our modern understanding of these animals, like this Pachycephalosaurus, or this Amargasaurus, this Parasaurolophus, and this Edmontosaurus. And yes, those last two do look like the ones from the Jurassic World website. Oh, and they had Spinosaurus, a few of them actually. One with a sort of sad and broken sail, one with a face only a mother could love, and one who seemed to be quadrupedal, which was certainly a sight. So again, it was a fun stop. If you're a fan of old dinosaur reconstructions, you'll probably love it here. My daughter certainly had a blast. She absolutely loved hiding in this egg that you're able to walk into. Now, before we continue to the rest of the stops, I first wanted to take a moment to thank my patrons and my channel members. Thank you all so much. You guys have been absolutely amazing recently. You're the reason why videos like this exist, so I am just very much appreciative of every single one of you. If you're interested in supporting me or the channel, I have the links for both of those down below. You do get access to some pretty cool perks, so that's there if you're interested. Once again, thank you so much to all my patrons and channel members. You guys are truly amazing. Now back to the rest of the video. Now we approach the big one, La Brea. This is actually the whole reason why I decided to take this trip. See, my wife and I were already planning a trip that we were going to take with my parents, but we were initially planning on going to Nebraska. Then that eventually evolved into just simply going to Salt Lake City, Utah. But then I found out that La Brea, like the museum, I believe, is going to be closing down for 2 years, starting in July, to undergo renovations. And so I was looking at that and I was like, shoot, you know, La Brea has always been at the top of my bucket list. Like, I desperately want to go there. I've always wanted to see those things. And now they're going to be closing down for 2 years, which would certainly delay that because I was kind of planning on going within the next 2 years. So we had a decision to make. Either we go now or we wait 2 years to go. And so we decided to go now. We completely changed our Salt Lake City plans, and instead we turned it into a California trip that we quickly tried to plan in like 2 weeks. And we did it. You know, we did it all because of La Brea. but it was certainly worth it. This was special. La Brea is just such an amazing fossil site that has revealed so many incredible animals that were once trapped in tar, and you can really feel the weight of that in this museum. There are so many animals shown off here, such as horses, camels, bison, ground sloths, various types of birds, American lions, Smilodon, and the Columbian mammoth. Oh, and not to mention the short-faced bear. I am sure that you're familiar with this statue. In fact, it's one of the first images that pops up when you Google the short-faced bear. I have seen so many pictures of this sculpture, but to actually stand at the base of it and look up to this towering animal, it was just so amazing, and I was so glad to get to do that. Also, yes, I'm aware that it's standing on a platform, so it's a little bit taller than it should be, but that still doesn't diminish the absolute like grandeur that you see while looking up at it. But I absolutely have to mention this. This was a highlight for me right here. The direwolf wall. This was amazing. 404 individual skulls, all slightly different from one another. This was a breathtaking sight, and really puts into perspective just how many animals were sadly caught in this trap during the Pleistocene. Because even this is just a fraction of all the animals that have been found. The direwolf wall was easily my favorite part of this stop. Of course, outside the museum, you can actually still see the tar pits, and even where many animals have been excavated. Notably, there's also some incredible and iconic mammoth statues that represent what it would look like for these behemoths to become trapped. I also want to mention that I was recognized here. Some folks who watched my videos and knew who I was came up and said hi, which was awesome. It's always a real pleasure to meet you guys when I'm off doing paleo stuff. You know, this has happened before at the Morrison Museum, and it's just really awesome. You know, I'm always really flattered when you guys come up and say that you like my videos. I'm just really awkward because I was always like a shy kid growing up, and I'm still kind of like that, but no, it's always like a real pleasure to meet you. So if you see me out doing stuff, be sure to come up and say hi. Now, La Brea was initially the only thing that I had planned for that day. Like, we were just gonna do La Brea and then go back to the hotel or get some dinner or something. However, I had remembered that there is actually a natural history museum in Los Angeles. And so I couldn't pass up the opportunity to go and check that out. And also I found out that it was only 24 minutes away from La Brea. So how could we not do that? So that's what we did for the second half of the day. We went to the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County. And as you could probably guess, it was amazing. It was just amazing. I mean, you enter to see this T-Rex and Triceratops display. Just look at this masterpiece. There's also some wildlife halls with some jaw-dropping displays that showcase the beauty of the natural world. I especially loved this elephant one with, you know, elephants and giraffes and just all kinds of really, really amazing things, including gorillas. I love gorillas. It was so cool to see them. Don't even get me started on the Hall of Birds. This was just insane to see. Obviously, I love birds. Birds are incredible. They are modern day dinosaurs, so this certainly still counts for purposes of this video. But man, just the sheer amount that are present here. Like, I spent a decent amount of time in there, and I'm pretty sure I didn't even properly look at everything. It was insane. And of course, there's a whole section that is dedicated to paleontology, which will be the main focus in this video. And what a section it is. I'm talking fossil walls, Mamenchisaurus, Majungasaurus, Mosasaurs, Edmontosaurs, and Carnotaurus. Some highlights for me were this Ionosaurus skull and this Spinosaurus jaw replica. Just absolutely beautiful. The centerpiece of this room is this massive display that potentially shows 3 separate growth stages of Tyrannosaurus. I stared at this possible juvenile T-Rex now for seemingly hours because I was trying to figure out if it's actually Nanotyrannus. I can't find much more information about this specimen specifically, so if you guys know anything about it, be sure to let me know, because we're still in that stage of, like, you know, actually making Nanotyrannus valid, of trying to figure out what young T-Rex was like. So I desperately want to see some more juvenile T-Rex specimens out there. And finally, we have the Cenozoic room, which highlights many things like human evolution, Panthera, the cheetah, walrus relatives, and even Pakicetus, which is an early whale ancestor. There is even a section that emphasizes the animals that went extinct more recently, something that I very much appreciate, as it's something that could potentially bring more attention to the animals that we're losing today. So that was the Los Angeles Museum, and just what a stop it was. I'm so glad that we decided to do that. It was incredible. I've always seen photos of some of these exhibits, and it was just a real treat to see them in person. Then after Los Angeles, we have San Diego. More specifically, the San Diego Zoo. You may be thinking, huh? The zoo? That doesn't count, does it? Well, it does. There's a whole section called Elephant Odyssey that essentially gives you a glimpse of what California was like during the Pleistocene, complete with elephants, lions, and camels, in addition to statues with their extinct counterparts. I even saw a statue of the American cheetah. Very, very cool. There's even a section that is a small replica of the tar pits, and it has a lot of really cool fossil replicas just kind of like laying in there. And it gives a good idea of what the dig site is like for, something like this. So it was a nice stop. Plus, there are some incredible animals here. I mean, just look at this pygmy hippo. I absolutely love pygmy hippos. They're just such amazing animals. I spent way too much time at this exhibit because I love these guys. So yeah, amazing stop. Then we have Disneyland. Check it out. Darth Vader, Millennium Falcon. No dinosaur things here. Wrong. There are dinosaur things here. There's a train that goes around the park that actually travels through a tunnel with dinosaurs, vintage ones at that, because they're old. It feels very Fantasia, and I love it. I will never complain about seeing these kinds of reconstructions, because it puts things into perspective about how much our understanding has grown over time, even if Dimetrodon did not live with the dinosaurs. Aside from that, though, there's really not many other paleo things here, at least not that we did, but my daughter certainly had a blast, and that was the main goal for this specific stop. She got to meet Minnie. She loves Minnie. It was amazing. It was a beautiful experience. Oh, and I also got this awesome Jessie helmet. Now, that was going to be the end of it. From here, we were going to go home. But then I was looking at the possible routes that we could take home, and I realized that there was a direction that we could go that goes through Salt Lake City. So we could potentially go through Salt Lake City. We like to remind you, we were already planning on staying at Salt Lake City for the whole trip initially, but maybe now we could just go to it real quick and make a stop at their natural history museum. So we did. That's what we did. We went to the Utah Museum of Natural History. I didn't get to spend too much time here because we were in the process of going home, which is a bit unfortunate. That means, it's open for me to go back there again sometime and, actually spend a little bit more time at this amazing place. But that doesn't really take away from how phenomenal this stop was. There were so many cool things. Uintatherium. This is like the first time I've seen like an actual Uintatherium skeleton on display. It's normally just its skull. So that was really cool. Lythronax with an amazing reconstruction. I mean, just check that out. Some therizinosaurs, which includes Nothronicus, plenty of Morrison formation animals like Allosaurus, the amazing Torvosaurus. I'm so happy that I finally got a picture of a Torvosaurus skull. Like, that's something I didn't have before, and I'm so happy to have it. And Ceratosaurus. I always wondered where this mount came from. And I cannot forget the stunning Ceratopsian wall. A wall covered with different ceratopsian species, and beautifully captures the diversity within that group. I have always wanted to see this, and it certainly did not disappoint. We even got to see the recently described Lokiceratops in all of its asymmetrical glory. I mean, of course, I do believe that this is a replica, but still amazing. Oh, and there was Deinosuchus. Bet that's the last time I'll see one of these on this trip. Now, again, we didn't really have too much time to kill here, so we did have to leave relatively quickly, but again, it was a great stop. Then last, but certainly not least, we have Dinosaur Journey in Fruita, Colorado. A museum that I visited a lot growing up. In fact, I'm sure that many of you probably remember it from this video right here. We made a stop there in that one too. But since I last went there, apparently they've added some new things to the museum. And so I wanted to check it out. So I figured that'd be the last thing we do on our way home. And when we entered, yeah, they made some changes. There's some new things here. I spied a mosasaur skull, animatronic baby dinos that you can control, but sadly it wasn't working when we went, and a Deinosuchus skull. I'm sure that's the last time I'll see one of those. It really is this time. They even updated the Dilophosaurus animatronic, kind of like how they did with the Utah Raptor animatronic a few years back. That was actually really wild to see. Because like the old one, obviously it wasn't doing so hot the last time we went. It looked kind of jagged and whatnot, and it was like falling apart. So now it looks a lot more complete, but it was just so jarring to see it look different from how it used to always look, like how I was used to seeing it. Like the colors look amazing, of course. The new colors are quite awesome, but there was something that was really iconic about the old ones as well. The old one also had like sparse feathers on it, which is a little thing that I really liked, and this new one doesn't have that. That's obviously not taking away from this new animatronic. It still looks really, really good. It was just a bit jarring because, again, I've spent a lot of time visiting this museum growing up, so it was just weird to see it look different. But aside from that, there's now a pterosaur room with an enormous Quetzalcoatlus in the center, and to the side, you can see various different pterosaurs, including the bizarre Pterodostro and the two species of Pteranodon. They are right next to each other, so it's a good way to compare and contrast. And, you know, it's a good way to note that they have different shaped crests. Like Longiceps has this crest, Sternbergi has this crest. A pterosaur room is just a phenomenal inclusion because those are animals that are relatively lesser known in paleontology, at least for the general public. So that was a really, really cool sight to see. And plus, the Quetzalcoatlus, you know, skull is just massive, so it's an amazing centerpiece. But yeah, that was our final stop, and I really enjoyed it. I'm glad that it was a great way to end the trip, essentially. Like, I think that was pretty much what started our trip last year when we went to Utah. This time, it ended things off. It's all bookends, you know, everything's bookends. But this was a lot of fun. I was so glad that I was able to take my daughter and my wife and even my parents on to all of these really cool places. And I hope to do something similar every year because I really do like checking out these amazing museums and amazing just dinosaur stops in general. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. And once again, thank you so much to my patrons and my channel members. You guys are truly, truly amazing. But that's pretty much all I have for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and have an awesome day.